Hi, I'm Kristen Baki, the host of No Filter. We are in Hibbing, Minnesota today, and we have a guest we are so excited to share with you. Welcome to No Filter. Today we have a guest who has had a lifelong love of the outdoors and summer camps, and she actually turned that into her career. We are excited to introduce you to Bridget Maruska. Bridget, welcome to No Filter. Thanks for joining us.
Kristen, thanks for having me.
So excited to have you here. I try not to be biased, but I am from Chisholm, and you are the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Chisholm. So I'm so excited to talk all things Go Blue Streaks.
Go Blue Streaks indeed. I'm learning all about it since I've taken that role.
How long has it been?
I'll be going on 3 years in May.
Okay.
So
Wow.
almost tenured. Would that be tenured? 3 years?
Almost.
I don't know. Yeah.
And how has it been so far?
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The community of Chisholm has been one of the biggest delights of my transition to the Iron Range. I can see why they call Chisholm the center of the universe and where all things happen. It really is such a vibrant community, and it's growing. And the people that I work with are hands down the best group of coworkers I've had in my entire life. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
So you grew up in Duluth, right?
correct.
Okay. So talk a little bit about your childhood growing up. What did Bridget love to do?
Well, I love to play outside. I am an outdoor focused, oriented person. Growing up, my family didn't do a lot of trips or anything like that. It was the kids went outdoors and found whatever, path they could find or creek they could discover. And so it was me and the neighborhood kids playing with pine cones. I remember we would create adventures for the pine cones. And I went to summer camp, and that was like the bigger outdoor adventure that I did get to have. And that was what solidified my love for paddle sports and not mountain biking so much, but paddle sports, archery even. We did all of the things. Horseback riding. I ended up riding quite a lot in my youth. So yeah, I just was an outdoor person.
So when your parents called for you to come home for dinner when you were a kid, were you the kid that was like, I'm not ready yet, I got to stay outside?
Yeah, you have to wait for the second call, not the first. You never come in on the first call.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So where did you go to school in Duluth?
I went to Duluth Denfeld for high school, and so I grew up right by the ore docks where the iron ore from the Iron Range was put onto ships, and so I grew up with the sounds and the smells of iron just on the opposite end of the industry, and Denfeld, and then I went on after high school to Lake Superior College, which I loved because of just the diversity in the student population. Having older adults in your classes was amazing because they asked all the questions you were too shy to ask as an 18-year-old. And that getting my AA through Lake Superior College was phenomenal. And then I went to UWS. So I stayed in the Duluth area, but jumped to Superior. And yeah.
I went to UWS as well.
Did too.
And I loved it because coming from Chisholm, I think my graduating class was around 60 students. So a university felt daunting to me, but UWS, they really pushed the smaller class sizes, and that was true. There were smaller class sizes. So I really enjoyed it. And it was just right over the bridge, right? Close enough.
Yeah, and the commute over the bridge is beautiful. So
Yes.
every day making that drive was not a problem.
Lake Superior is a wonder. Oh, man. So in high school, were you into sports, or were you just focused on that outdoor stuff?
In high school, I was not so much into sports. I liked volleyball, so I did become the manager. I think there was a perception of me being too short to play, although I tried out, and that might haunt me for the rest of my life that I didn't make the team. But then I became manager and got paid to be at the games. So I started realizing what is important in life, and a career making money in high school is. So beyond volleyball, I didn't care for the sport so much, which is interesting now in my current role as Parks and Rec director. In rec, there's all these team sports. And so I'm trying to pull the passion that maybe wasn't there in my earlier years and find it now, but really focusing in on kids is what I love. And so any sport, if you see the kids having fun in them, that is what's important to me. It's not the winning. So I bring that to the table in my career now. But I was into English in high school, and I was the editor of the high school newspaper my senior year, and that was the stuff that I loved.
And what did you love about that?
Besides the instructor, Mrs. Bonovitz, who was like my height, and she would take me to lunch. I thought she was so special. I think putting together stories and sharing people's stories. And then I liked punctuation, so I was good at editing.
So it's interesting that you say, you didn't make the volleyball team. By the way, I don't think height is a prerequisite for playing volleyball. I know plenty of good volleyball players who are your height. Not my height. We're kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, you and I. But I love that you found a way around it to still be involved, but you got paid. Yeah. The players were not getting paid to be there every day. You were. Did you always have that savvy mindset?
No, I fell into that just because I liked the sport.
Okay.
But then I think my priorities shifted, and I realized that when I can make money, I should make money. And so, yeah, I went on to become a camp counselor in high school. So I'd spend my whole summer away making money and playing with kids, and that was fantastic.
And was that, do you think, sort of what drew you then into the role you have today?
Yeah. Yep, it did.
And what was it that you were like, this is something, it's kind of like being at the playground, but as an adult, and it's your job. Like, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who loved being a camp counselor. But did you think like this, I could make this into a career?
I didn't consider it at the time, but when the opportunity to direct the camp came and I was hired for that, I realized, okay, outdoor rec is a thing. And ever since I was at the summer camp, which I absolutely loved, it was my favorite place on earth. As a camp director, I saw all of what happens in administration to make the fun stuff happen. And I realized I like that too, the administrative end. So that's what a city Parks and Rec director does. It's like running a big summer camp for a lot of youth in a city.
Yeah. I can remember growing up, the Chisholm Rec was the place to be. All summer long, we would ride our bikes there. We would probably bring a lunch, if I remember right. I mean, it used to be open in the evenings then. That we lived there, but that's where we made all of our friends and where we learned to play some of the sports that, some kids went on to play. And also, it was a little competitive. We'd keep score, and it's such an important part of a community. So when you were a camp counselor, and then you said you ended up running the camp, right?
So I attended YMCA Camp Miller. It's actually the oldest YMCA camp in the state of Minnesota and the 6th oldest, and maybe even older. It depends on if some of them have closed. But when I was the director, it was the 6th oldest Y camp in the nation. I went there from age 8 to 16 was when I became a counselor. I'm pretty sure that I'm the only person who has went from a camper to a counselor to a camp director at Camp Miller. So there's some serious recognition in that, and I was really proud of it.
Did 8-year-old you think someday I'll be running this whole thing?
I didn't think that, but I do remember when I was 16, which is the young age for a counselor, and I was having my review with the camp director, Tracy Klana, who's a staple in Duluth. She asked a lot of questions, and it was a review of my performance, but I spent a lot of time reviewing the structure of the programming and what I thought could be done better. And I think she saw something in me at that point when I was 16 and telling her how to do her job.
That's interesting because it seems like a volleyball manager in that role does somewhat similar tasks, right? Like your goal is to kind of keep things moving, keep things in order.
Yeah.
And then at 16, you're doing the same thing at this camp. Mm-hmm. So how did you end up, it would have been years later, going back and actually running this whole camp, right?
Yeah, at 29, and my age was 29 when I took the role at Camp Miller. The camp was actually struggling to keep the doors open. Registration was down. I think traditional summer camp programming was not as sought out by the community because of sports camps and maybe just swaying away from that outdoor rec, traditional overnight structure. And the camp, actually, they wanted to hire me part-time because the budget was so short. And I convinced them that full-time would be the only way I would take the position. And I did come on full-time, and there was, I think, 8 years plus of deficit each year. But we changed that in the first year that I came in, and it's been doing well ever since.
It's still a camp that's open and running and ready for kids.
It is.
Wow, that's incredible. Good for you.
Yeah, it felt like one of my life accomplishments.
Yeah. Do summer camps, do they struggle generally, do you know? Or are they still a really popular thing? I remember growing up, they were all over, but I don't know what it's like today.
I think a lot of the traditional camps have closed. The YMCA is pretty good at just supporting within YUSA all of the entities that are trying to operate, and so there is work that's done to keep them open. But it was a declining activity. There could be resurgence. I know when I was working there, it was 2009 to 2014, and digital stuff, gaming, and like computers were, obviously not new, but really popular. And I think that was a reason why kids weren't so inclined to want to go spend a week away from their devices. But there could be, a push for unplugging. And I think if nationwide adults push to unplug more, summer camp would see the benefits of that.
I think that would be a good move.
Yeah.
I think kids need to unplug. They're using iPads in school for their homework. It's kind of nonstop, and a summer camp seems like the perfect place. There's so much to do, usually a lake, lots of outdoor activities. I'm curious how you ended up in Chisholm. Can you talk about that sort of job progression, how that came up? Were you immediately interested or kind of hesitant to move to the range?
That's a great question. I wouldn't say I was hesitant to move to the range because I spent time in, when I was the camp director, I lived in Sturgeon Lake. So that's a very small community. So I wasn't intimidated by a smaller community than Duluth, but, and I knew that there were plenty of range towns that have a downtown, and Sturgeon Lake didn't have that. So I knew it would be a step up from that type of rural that I was living during camp. After I left camp, I went back into education for a while, and then I got a job at the public library in Duluth. And through working in the public library and learning what it's like to work for a municipality, I realized that that is the route I wanted to go. Not necessarily in the walls of a library, but working for public service in a city is what I wanted, and Parks and Rec was the natural fit for me. So when the position opened and I saw actually a coworker of mine in the library sent me the listing, and I looked on social media to see, well, who would be my supervisor? I want to make sure that this would be the right fit. And I saw a supervisor online that looked like I'd get along with her. And I was excited to apply and elated to get the job.
Yeah. And I mean, you did your research. Everybody should, right?
Yeah.
Before taking a leap like that. What has been, there's a lot going on in Chisholm recreationally. What has been your highlight so far?
I love the kid programming. And so the rec program that you mentioned earlier is incredible. I think what's the beauty of it is the high schoolers are in there and they are the ones staffing the younger youth, and the kids just look up to them just like they would a camp counselor. And everything is in walking distance in Chisholm, so they get to walk to this park or that park, or we do take the bus and go on field trips to other Iron Range communities. But it's almost magical how they mentor each other. The focus really is on positive behavior and good interactions with each other, and it's beautiful. And it's a lot of youth, and it's only I think this year $85, but that's unheard of. All of the youth programs through the Y that I've worked at are exponentially higher price than that. So it's the city prioritizes its youth and wants the families to be able to afford to send their kids to that program. And all of the programs that we provide, we want to make them affordable. It's really important to us.
Yeah. I've never thought about the Chisholm Rec program, having gone there as long as I could. Then I worked there as a high schooler. I never thought of it as a camp, but the way you were just describing it, it sounds like a summer camp.
Yeah, it pretty much is. And it's just not in cabins overnight.
Yeah.
It's a day camp. And we did add archery to make it feel a little bit more like summer camp. So yeah, we bought archery equipment, and that's a nice addition to it. The other piece of working in Chisholm is Redhead Mountain Bike Park. It's a big thing. It's a world-class mountain bike park, and so that takes a lot of my time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think trails on the ground could really take up that much administrative time, but they do.
So talk a little bit about Redhead and being involved in such a unique project like that. It has really blown up, featured in documentaries and really highlighting, obviously the trail system is gorgeous, and I love to hike it. I don't mountain bike either. I'm scared.
Yeah.
I know there are some people who are like, we'll take you out, it'll be fine, but I prefer to stay on my feet. So I do a lot of hiking there. Highly recommend it if anyone hasn't been there. But that has become really a staple of that community, and it's fairly new.
Yeah. But we know it's a tourism draw because it's a world-class mountain bike park, but it is such a community hub for health and wellness, and whether you're on two wheels or you're on your feet, I think the most unique part of it, and if I were to compare it to any other trail system, and I have been biking lately, and I've been trying to get out to see other trail systems so that I understand what Redhead has to offer, but Redhead is in an old mining pit, and the topography is like Colorado mountain biking, and it's so stunningly beautiful. And if coming not from the range and not growing up with mine pits as lakes, I have been shocked by how beautiful they are, like the aqua green, because there's not a ton of foliage in the bottom, maybe, but wow, it's stunning, and everybody needs to come just for the vistas. Like, hike to the vista and look at this lake. It is so pretty, with the aqua green and then the red rock, iron ore.
I know, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you see that pit water, it is a little shocking. Wow, that looks like we're in the Caribbean. Go outside today in the winter, you're not in the Caribbean, but that trail system is just, it's become such a huge part of the community and a real point of pride, which I, having grown up in Chisholm, and I know this of other communities as well, that pride, I think, is what really pushes people to keep bettering where we live in our neighborhoods. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that as far as the Parks and Rec Department goes. What is the focus in Chisholm right now?
There is a master plan that is underway for Redhead Mountain Bike Park, which is going to bring the trail system into Chisholm. So it's going to connect the mountain bike trails to the parks. Like, one park in particular, Longyear Lake Park, it's the most scenic location for a city park on Longyear Lake, which is right in the middle of town. So the connectivity and the walkability to downtown is all there. But now connecting, what it doesn't have currently is a connection to the mountain bike system, which is vast and brings in tourism. So ultimately, we're looking at connecting the trail, getting it to town, so somebody could come and or from your house if you're a resident, or if you're driving in and you park downtown and you eat out, you can get right on the mountain bike system and go through the parks that are existing. A new park was just added, Bruce Mine Head Frame Park and Trailhead, and that'll serve as a trailhead for Redhead, and it's ode to historic underground mining, not the open pit mining, but the underground. So it has the head frame, a shaft that goes down. So it's a really just a unique space where you're taking history and you're taking outdoor recreation and you're melding them together and making it accessible to everybody.
Yeah. A couple times throughout our chat here, you've mentioned a couple of people who have been influential in, different aspects of your life. Can you get into that a little more? I want to know sort of who helped shape you into who you are today?
Well, I don't want to talk about camp too much, but
it's clearly a big part of your life.
Camp counselors have, and so this is maybe a message to anybody who is mentoring a youth. The impact that you can make on youth is whether you're in a camp setting or a summer rec program. If you're taking care of youth, it makes a big difference in their life. And so I looked up to many, high school aged young adults who impacted me in that way, just making me feel like I was kind of cool, and they wanted to be around me, so that boosted my confidence and allowed me to take on things that were of interest to me. Of course, my mother was an incredible influence as well, and the things that stand out to me about her are her generosity in, I think, accepting others and believing in others and thinking the best. She always would assume the best of everyone, and so I try to do that as well.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about youth, because that's also it's clearly a passion of yours as well, what is the importance of that connection with youth? We've spoken with a lot of different people from around the area, and this topic seems to come up. And I just think it's so important that we support the younger generations and make sure that they feel welcome no matter where they are in life. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. That seems to be, obviously you spent much of your life and still do sort of as a camp counselor, right? So that must be really near and dear to you.
It is, yeah. I think, generally speaking, kids from any background, from any home, however they're parented, need to feel as though they belong in the spaces that they are, and that is something that during staff training at the rec program, we'll teach those staff, the young staff, make sure that the kids feel as though that they belong, that you want them there. And that could be, starting with a clean slate each day. If a kid makes a mistake one day, just allow them the next day to start with a clean slate and don't hold that against them. Just start fresh each day. Youth are very formable. Like everything is changing for them, and they're dependent on positive adults. So,
what are some things on your bucket list?
I'd love to see Redhead and Chisholm become, as you dive into bike towns and what bike towns do, trail towns, there are mistakes that can be made, but I'm reading all of the books right now to learn to not make those mistakes in advancing like what is a really vibrant community-led space, which Chisholm is. So it's like we can just improve on what we have, and so we already have something great, and I just want to see it continue to grow and be made better.
What about your personal bucket list? What are some things you'd like to check off?
Well, personally, traveling, which is funny because when I came into this role, I had come from the library, and when you're a frontline staff at a library and you take a vacation, there's people to do your work for you when you leave. And so vacation was really important to me when I came into this role, and I negotiated to have the most amount of vacation I could have. And I can't use it. There's no way I can go anywhere. There's too much to do. So maybe at some point we can get this city built up enough that I can hire a couple folks in the Parks and Rec department year round, and then I could take a couple more vacations. That I do want to start traveling.
That's interesting. I think so many people deal with that work-life balance. I like to sometimes call it a blend instead of balance, because especially if it's a passion project, if your work is something that you love and you are driven to see it happen, it can be hard to step away. But it's also important that you get to take a little bit of time. So you struggle with that work-life balance.
Oh, probably, yeah.
I don't think you're alone. I think it's a tough thing to figure out. But I hope you get to do some of the traveling that you want to do. Yeah. What have you loved learning most about being in a newer community?
I've learned that I can move to new communities and not know anybody and be perfectly fine so within like a week I felt comfortable here. And maybe that's exclusive to Chisholm, and I don't know that for sure. I'd have to be somewhere else to know. But I think moving and meeting new people isn't that hard to do, even when you're 45. It just, well, maybe it is because it's Chisholm. Everybody's so friendly and welcoming.
It's interesting. I think sometimes there is a perception that the Range area, and I can say this because I'm from here, can be kind of hard to infiltrate, right? If you don't know people here and you move here, it can be kind of difficult. So that's nice to hear that you have had a good experience with that. And I think communities are doing a lot to try and know how to welcome people in, because we do want people to come here. I mean, who wouldn't want to live here? Again, I know I can be a little biased, but that's great that you've had that experience. Is that any part of your role within the city that sort of welcoming?
Not officially, but I am on the outskirts of that work, and that work is kind of in my heart, and I am paying attention to it. Miriam Caro, who is she heads up the Hello Range initiative, which is similar to Iron Range tourism, but more focused on residential recruitment or maintaining the new residents that come. And, she interviewed me when shortly after I got up here, I acquired an ATV, because why wouldn't you? And, which, by the way, I can get, this was not happening to me in Duluth, where I could park an ATV in my garage and drive out of my garage and drive down the roads and then get onto a trail system, which was expansive and vast. And I have not explored it in any realm of fully exploring. So that was really neat. And Miriam came to my house and we rode on my ATV together, and I took her for a little tour, and she was going to do a video. I don't know what happened to that video. I think it didn't work out well. Maybe the sound, like a phone video with sound. She probably has to redo that and get some better equipment. But yeah, so that was really neat to do that with her. And she wants to show, it's her job to show what the range can offer folks moving up here. And living in a city and knowing the restrictions on, I just think the freedom of the space, that's what I sense up here that I'm really into, is freedom of space to just go where you want to go and ride on whatever equipment you want to ride on to get to there.
I think you could add the more exploring of the trail systems to your bucket list. That could be a present day.
I do need to
bucket list, right?
Yes.
They are beautiful, and if you can, trailer your ATV to other parts of the Iron Range, it's just, it looks like you're in a completely different place sometimes, which is also a really neat experience. Well, thank you so much for being with us today on No Filter, and thank you for all the work you do, especially with the kids in our communities. That's so incredibly important and something I'm passionate about as well. So I love chatting with you and getting to know you a little bit more. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.